you're an expert in your field, we would love to have you as a guest in our show. To register, go to howhardcanitbepodcast.com. Mike, welcome, brother. How are you?
Yeah, so my name's Mike Venereo. I've been in the industry for about 6.5 years. I've been in sales for a really long time. When I was younger, I was more of like a hopper. So I was in network marketing, I sold impact windows, I did gym sales, a guy that never committed, but always had dreams to be more, right? I would tell you that's what I was doing. And I remember my last position was I was a pharmaceutical sales rep, and I worked there for 3 years. So I was a legal drug dealer, which was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I would go to doctors, connect with the people in the offices. And unfortunately, what happened, I became top 5% salesperson of the company. But when the company got bought out by another company, they still let me go. And so I realized at that moment, like, even if you're great at a job, there's sometimes no job security, right? Unfortunately. And I remember a friend of mine calls me. He's like, hey, you should jump into real estate with me. But imagine, I had no money. I had no background, no experience. And so I decided, all right, let me get into the business by working for someone else, because it was an easy way for me to enter. So when I get into this company, they teach me wholesaling, but they only teach me one side of it, which wholesaling, the way it works is you're selling the contract. So to give you an example, let's say you're buying a house for $100,000 and you put a contract for $100,000 and you find another buyer, let's say like you, and I say, hey, I want to sell you this contract, right? You're going to take my position as a buyer for $115,000. And then you make that middle money, which is called either an assignment fee or a double closing fee, right? So you're going to get a certain amount for saying, I got a good deal at 100 and I sell it to you at 115. Now, the idea with wholesaling is you still have to leave enough meat on the bone for you as the rehab investor to still be able to rehab the deal and then sell for $50,000 profit.
So Mike, tell us, how hard can it really be to find a deal? I mean, it sounds pretty simple. You send an offer, right, to the listing agent or to the seller, and you go under contract. So how hard can it be?
Yeah, when it comes to the wholesaling side, it's a little bit harder. So in theory, it is easy. You're supposed to get a property that needs a rehab, send an offer, get the right price. But what happens is that as a wholesaler, you're trying to make a spread. So if you and I were buying a property to rehab on our own, we'll put a number in our head. We're going to make $45,000 after we do all this work. I have to find now this deal in a competitive market, but can't be 45 after I do the work. It has to be 65 after I do the work, because I need to make at least $10,000 spread. So in reality, it's not that it's hard. Like, it's a simple business, but it's not easy, because you got to send offers, you get rejected, you get offended, you got people telling you, you're ridiculous. Do you know this market? Do you know the house I have? People are emotional. So the seller's like, no, my house is beautiful. It's in Westchester. Westchester, there was a house over there. It's over $700,000.
And I did my bathroom.
Yeah. And you look at those floors. Those are terrazzo floors from 1962. And they're like, okay, cool, dude, but we're in 2023,
Yes, exactly.
And so, you have to deal with a lot of emotions when it comes to somebody's home.
So it sounds to me like a wholesaling business, it's a numbers game, because you just mentioned you have to send a lot of offers, you get a lot of rejections. See, me as an investor in my other business, you're right, I don't go for wholesaling, I just go for the deals. But I don't have to send them any offers. I just go and I look for what I want. For sure, I need to find something that nobody likes, that is in bad shape, and that's how I get my return. In your case, you have to find something like that, but an additional step, you have to find something with extra cash so that it's still good enough for me, but you also get your spread for finding the deal and putting team together.
Correct.
Now, I know you have built a successful team in wholesaling.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming, who's part of your team? Like, if you're a wholesaler, what do you have to have in your team? You have to have people just sending offers, you have to have people searching, cold calling. How is that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? There's different departments in a wholesale team. In wholesaling, if you were to really, now that I've gone through the experience, wholesaling is not really investing. right? In the beginning, you think you're an investor, but what you truly have is a sales company.
You're providing a service.
Yeah, you're providing a service. I find a bunch of buyers, I go find a bunch of sellers, I unite them, and I make a small fee for it. So I'm an affiliate, if you think about it. In the beginning, I would be like, oh, I'm an investor. But as I would meet the real investors, I would be like, no, I'm a sales guy that gets properties for an investor. So as you start building your team in order to scale it out, we got to the point where in 1 year, we did 102 wholesales.
Wow.
So it was a big volume. And we had 7 acquisitions. So that means 7.
What's an acquisition?
So 7 people were just sending offers and following up and negotiating. That was their job. They didn't have to worry about nothing else.
So 7 people full-time just sending offers.
Just sending offers, reviewing properties, running numbers, thinking, okay, this is the number I have to send it at, and then I would send my offer and follow up.
So to answer your question, how hard can it be? Is like, it takes a lot of time. I mean, I can imagine 7 people full time just sending on offers, doing numbers.
25 offers a day, not just sending an offer. 25 offers a day, because you're going to get rejected 23 times. You're going to get maybe one, and then you'll lock in, within 75. We were at a 79 to 1. That's what our ratio was at one point. So
what is 79 to 1?
79 offers to getting one contract accepted.
Wow, so it's a very little percentage.
Correct. Now, out of the accepted contracts, it was like every 5 accepted, we would actually close one.
Because first you get the signed contract, but now you have to wholesale it to the investor,
to a buyer.
So your service, the value that you bring is that you have the people, you have the framework to be sending offers, negotiating, getting the control of the property so that you could sell it to your investor.
Correct.
So now you send 80 offers, you get one under contract. Maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you get 5 under contract. But under the 5 under contract, you're saying that maybe you only close one.
Correct.
Because for the contract, we're not really a great fit for your buyers.
Correct.
Wow. So I mean, it sounds like a lot of work.
Now, not only is it not a good fit for the buyers, we're going after the foreclosures, probates, liens, and violations. By the time the buyer agrees and we're getting to closing, another problem pops up. A probate that now you need 5 heirs to sign, but only one of them is in Miami.
Yeah.
Boom, a foreclosure fund pops up. Now you got to stop the sale. So, damn, I had that deal, but it fell through. A lien in violation for $500,000 comes up, and the buyer's like, I wasn't buying a house with a $500,000 lien. I don't want it. So then the numbers start getting even less.
Yeah, because throughout the process that you're under contract, there's title search.
Correct.
Attorney title search, all these things come up, and now is even your closing ratio even reduces.
Correct.
And you only make money, I'm assuming, when you close on the property.
Only when you close on the property.
So in theory, right, you are providing a service, but you're also an investor, and I'm going to tell you why, in my opinion, you're an investor. You're investing your people, your time, your energy to go through the whole process to hopefully close the deal at the end of the 30 days.
Correct.
Me as an investor, I go through the whole process. I have to buy something, I have to invest, I have to put all the resources, I have to put all the money, and hopefully that at the end, when I'm done with the rehab, I'm able to flip the property and make my return.
Correct. So we invest in a different way.
Exactly.
We're investing resources, time, people, because to finish off what you had asked me a little while ago, it was 7 acquisition, 3 that were disposition. So these would, once the contract would get locked up, they would grab it. We would all speak. We would say, okay, put $22,000 on this one. And they had to call all the buyers that we knew. Hey, do you want this house? 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 Send emails, send text messages. Hey, do you want this house? Come see it, come see it, come see it, to help the other teammate that they had within the 10-day inspection period to get that contract sold.
Wow.
And then we had our transaction coordinator, which once the contract would go under, contract A to B, B to C, then they would take it to closing. And so it was a process. And then I was more the leader, right? I was the morning guy, the inspiring guy, looking at my number guy, looking at the KPIs. Why isn't it? Let's talk why. What are you going through? Role play with my team. So that's my role. I wasn't really a caller anymore, but I had built that.
You were the visionary, you were the company, basically operations, making sure everybody's doing what they're doing, having the tools and resources to build your team, because that's how you build a team.
Correct, exactly.
That's exactly what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Your business.
Yeah, full team, full operation.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you start off in this wholesale business 7 years ago. You started doing great. You lived from the pharmacy. So who got you in this business again?
So it was a buddy of mine. He had found me on Instagram. Back then I used to still do a couple of little videos in there. I've always been more of the inspiration type guy. So my videos were more about inspiration, motivation, what I do in the morning and stuff like that. So he knew that I was in sales. He knew I had the potential. And so he brought me in. After working for the company for a couple of months, didn't like where it was going. And that's when I branched off by myself with 2 of the guys in the office. And we kind of branched off. Blessing, I'm glad that I did it. But I learned a lot through what they were teaching me. They were great at what they did. They were phenomenal branders, phenomenal investors. They were finding great deals. I got to watch, because I only got taught one side. I was only on the disposition. I didn't know how to acquire, but I would watch the acquisition guys and ask questions.
Okay.
And so that's how I get in. Obviously, I watched 1,000 YouTube.
Yeah.
I paid a friend of mine $5,000. And I told him, all right, do me a favor, break me down the education of wholesaling. He was like, all right, meet me at Starbucks. All right, sounds good. He got a piece of paper like that. And he's like, this is what you're going to do. You put a contract. You look for a buyer. You put some escrow. You take it to closing. You mark it, put some bandit signs. That's it.
Step 1, step 2, the recipe, the whole recipe.
Yeah, $5,000 later, I was one paper in, Starbucks 20-minute conversation. I was like, That was awesome. That was great.
But you know what's funny about that story is that if I could go back and invest more on my education, I would have.
Oh,
Because
100%.
the
I still do
$5,000,
it.
the $5,000 save you so much time and errors and mistakes that gets paid off. And a lot of people don't realize how important it is to invest in yourself, that make sure that you learn from the right people. It's a shortcut when you invest in yourself.
Yeah, and it also gives you a confidence, right? If you're on YouTube and you're, on Instagram learning things and you're thinking, does this really work? But then you have this guy you pay $5,000 that's actually succeeding, and he tells you, hey, do these exact steps.
Why wouldn't you?
It gives you the confidence, right? Because you're learning all these things, let's say to work out. Oh, you should do this, but you're not looking any better.
Yeah.
Then you meet the guy that has the biceps that you want, and he's like, oh, you should do this. And you're, oh, damn, is it really that simple? I should probably follow. Yeah. And so I think that's what it really gave me. It gave me that confidence that everything I'm learning is real.
Now, it's funny that you say the confidence because, you need the confidence to do stuff. But
Correct.
What keeps Mike going? Because in my experience, the only way that I was able to build my team, like you have your team, is to keep going. Even when you fall down, like what keeps you going?
So great question. I think for me, it has to do with a lot of mindset training, right? This last year and a half, if you were to ask how hard can it get, during COVID, I was 100% wholesaling off what's called the MLS, the multi-listing search. So where real estate agents are putting their listings.
All the listings. Everybody has access to those.
Everybody has access to.
You go to realtor.com, you go to Zillow.
Correct.
It's everywhere.
Correct. So we had such a strong team that it worked. It was great, right? We were so good at it that it worked. I never went what's called off market, which is going and marketing directly to the seller. Never did I do that in my doors, door knocking, bandits. I barely ever did that. When COVID hits, the MLS dries because nobody's selling their house. Everybody panicked. And my team starts dissolving. Oof. Right? And I start going, do I really want to start this all over again? And that's where I pivot mentally. And at that moment, I decide I'm going to go more into rehabbing houses, like really full throttle. And 2 or 3 of the homes that I rehab, I decide I'm going to do ground up construction. Never done it before.
Wow.
But I had the money for it. I had the experience in the sense of, I know if I buy right, I build, I can sell.
And you had the confidence.
I had the confidence. And so I jump in. At the exact same time, I have my first kid.
Oh, nice.
And that was the wrench, right? Because now, for the first time, I'm investing millions of dollars into something I've never done. I'm not sleeping.
Which takes big cojones.
Big cojones, right?
And then you have a kid on the way.
And I have a kid on the way. And then I have babies born, new experience, no sleeping, readjusting my life. And boom, pregnancy number 2.
Oh, there you have it.
And so it was a year of learning how to be a dad, learning how to be a husband, learning how to be a businessman, having millions of dollars, liens, violations, permits, issues left and right. I felt like the world was just bouncing me. It was just like a boxing match.
Mike, how hard can it be, Mike?
How hard can it be?
Come on, man.
And so to answer the question, in that time frame, I started getting into meditation. I started reading more books. I started going to more events. I started going, investing more money in myself because I knew I could have fallen into bad habits.
Right?
I was born in Miami. My past is not that pretty. I could have fallen into that really quick. I could have.
We're going to talk about that later.
Right? I could have been like, hey, you know what? Forget about this fatherhood.
Yeah.
I have other friends that have, booked it from this. I'm bouncing. There's so many things that my mind could have done because at the moment of pressure, you're either becoming a diamond or you're collapsing.
Yeah.
And so I told myself, Mike, you're not falling apart here. What are you going to do? I swear to you, I would go into meditation classes and I was sitting there for 2-3 hours at a time, just praying. All right, guys, I can do this. Mike, center your ground, center your soul, present moment. Hey, changed my life.
Yeah.
Because today I can see, like what you said a little while ago, I have cojones. I can press now.
Yeah.
So much different than I could before.
You build the confidence.
But so to answer that, that's what I do. Read books, go to the gym, make sure I'm healthy, and do things that have to do with my mind, right? Because I would have probably collapsed during that moment.
It's so funny how you mentioned that because that resonates with me so much. Because when my life changed, when I started going up in my business, opening a business, is when I started investing my mind. Seminars, books, meeting people, connecting, learning, and like absorbing all this information and just trying to stay focused. So, I mean, yeah, that's great advice, brother. Great advice, good stuff. And I'm glad that you made it where you made it. So moving forward, COVID passes, you're going through these hard times. You decided to basically start developing, buying and selling. What happens next? What's going on now?
Yeah, so now it's been amazing, right? Because once I got out of the mess when it came to the ground up construction, right? And I wouldn't say it's always going to be a mess. So don't think that what I'm sharing, or if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I don't want to become a ground up construction guy. I was just a little bit more of a cowboy. And I tried to pull off things that I probably shouldn't have done, learning that. Because as a rehabber, sometimes I would be like, man, change the kitchen. I'm not going to pull a permit. Just pull the kitchen. But when you're doing ground up, you got to pull permits. Yeah, you can't just keep a wall and be like, oh yeah, that was a remodel. No, that's not a remodel. The rest of the house is brand new. And so that put me in a little bit of a grind because uncertainty of like the city wanting to demo a built house and work without work stop orders and stuff like that. Now, in that time, I also learned a lot. It connected me with the right people. I learned how to move faster through the city. So it was a cool experience. I realized like, all right, cool. What I truly want after being in 3 different facets of the business was I want cash flow. And so wholesaling is a phenomenal business, but it's very transactional, meaning that, you're only good as your next wholesale.
Yeah.
So if my guys didn't find another contract, I wasn't making any dollars. Rehabbing is very similar, right? After I built a few of my houses, I had converted them into short-term rentals.
Okay.
And that's when I started realizing, what cash flow truly is.
What is cash flow?
Right. So the short-term rental market, the Airbnb, the VRBO, what most people know it as, it's like an accelerated cash flow. Because if you rent a house to a regular tenant, let's say in a good neighborhood, you'll get about $4,500 a month.
Okay.
If you run an Airbnb correctly, you'll probably be doing about like $12,000 to $14,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
Now, it is a little bit of a different business. It's not as passive as just renting regularly because now you're in the hospitality industry.
It's more active.
Correct. You're more active.
And now
you have to help people. You have to treat them right.
Yeah.
You have to do a little bit more. But if you can 3 times or 4 times your rent, dude, it's phenomenal. Now, what I love about the cash flow is that next month, you know how much you're making. So you're never starting on zero. When we were wholesaling, we were starting at zero.
Always zero. Yeah.
Where's the next client? Because these are already accounted for.
Yeah, that deal's done, said, now you have to keep finding it.
And so when I got, again, it was like, God put me at the right place. I took the right moves. Opportunity meets hard work, and that's considered luck. Boom.
Yeah.
I jumped into Airbnb. I started seeing cash flow. And then I'm like, I want more. I buy a building, remodel it, cash flow, buy another building, remodel it, cash flow. And so I was having a meeting about this the other day. I was telling a bunch of friends of mine that are wholesalers. And I was like, I wish I would have learned 5 years, 6 years ago when my friends were telling me, stop selling everything and hold.
Hold some, yeah.
And I would be like, you're crazy, but I'm going to hold, make what, $600 a month? Or I'm going to wholesale and make $30,000 today.
I'll take my 10 grand now.
I'll take my 10 grand now. I'll take my 15 grand now.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, got it.
Now I got it.
And now I got it.
But you know what's funny? Like in your journey, if it wasn't for the wholesale business that you started 6, 7 years ago, most likely you would not have been able to start your development and your release. So
Correct.
So it's like people don't understand. Like a lot of times, people like, oh, how hard can it be to make $1 million, or how hard can it be to run a business, or how hard can it be to build a business, or to do a cash flow business? But at the end of the day, it's like your experiences, the steps that you've taken gets you there.
100%.
Opens to more doors.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So that people that like probably starting, there's a process to the madness. Unless you have the connections, you have the experience, you have the people, and you could like partner up with somebody and put in the money, then maybe it's different. But when you're starting like you and me, like you start with nothing, you like hustling, you're Miami, I'm a Miami guy.
Right.
You probably started with nothing, same here.
Right.
Like, you gotta grind it.
Correct.
$10,000 back then is not a bad gig. I mean, I probably wouldn't have said, you know what, let me keep more properties, because you probably didn't have the cash flow to keep properties at that time.
Correct. And the education. And that's why I say
thing.
always with the education, right?
Mindset.
The world that I was in was all wholesalers.
Yes.
The education I would go to was how to become a better wholesaler. The coaching that I had was how to build a better team to wholesale, right? Would never go to the long-term events. I never met people that were holding real estate for 10 years. I just didn't have that circle. The circle wasn't my circle. My networking events was about wholesalers. So I dug myself in. I obsessed with becoming the best wholesaler, not the best investor.
Yes.
And that's what I've learned in the 6.5 years journey. There's two different, and not two, there's 10 different types of
and there's a lot more
models
yes.
that you can do.
I mean, real estate, you also have, when you start buying buildings and just the passive income.
Yeah, that's passive.
That's my goal, right? Like,
Correct.
eventually get to that. But for me, I have to go through a process. Like, at least that's what I learned. You have to go through a process to get to the big goal, which is passive. You set it on, and the money just keeps coming in.
Correct.
So if you're enjoying this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also, if you're an expert in your field, we would love to have you as a guest in our show. To register, go to howhardcanitbepodcast.com. What tips can you provide to people that maybe want to start in any of the business that you started or building a team? What can you tell them? Like, somebody that wants to really learn from you.
Yeah, so what I recommend, guys, you expressed it a little while ago, which was very important. The easiest way to get into the real estate world is going through wholesaling. That's going to be, I would say, the fastest way for you to start building an income. And then you decide what you want to do with the income, after you make it. And I also want to share with you guys that doing it off the MLS is probably the quickest because it's only going to take your time and your effort versus going off market where you have to start learning marketing strategies. You got to start investing dollars behind marketing things. And then you got to realize where that money's going. And so the reason why I say that is because that's how I started, right? I got in straight off the MLS. I started learning how to run my numbers. I started learning how to, send the offers. And all you really got to do is learn how to negotiate, communicate, right? In Miami, maybe if you're from another place, I don't know if it works the same. But in Miami, a lot of Miami people are Hispanic. So there's a lot of rapport and bonding that helps out with the sale, right? I don't know if maybe in Michigan is the same thing. I look American, but I'm Cuban, right? And so here, a lot of people do business with people they like. And I'm pretty sure in sales that works across the board. But here it works extra good. And so, you use that in your advantage by making friends, getting to know them, go have coffee with them. But remember, guys, the realtor already got the seller to raise their hand.
Yeah.
The seller already said, I want to sell. You don't have to negotiate, go to a random door, listen to somebody, tell you off. You don't have to go through those phases. Listen, grow into that. But if you want to get paid quick, that's one of the first things I would recommend you.
That's a great tip because it sounds like, if you don't have money to invest, but you have the time and you have the energy,
correct,
it's going to be the fastest, easiest way to start producing some money so that eventually you could get more doors open and then have the opportunity to invest. Now, the show is how hard can it be to create a cash flow business? So if you have no cash flow or no money, this is probably one of the fastest routes to stick to that.
Correct.
Now, obviously, the next advice I think will be to educate yourself on how to do the business so that you could do it right.
Correct.
And I'm sure you could probably come up with some kind of mentoring, teaching program that somebody will sit with you, give you $5,000, and you give them the recipe.
Listen, I'm working on that right now for the Airbnbs, because I learned that we were doing it different. We were producing different type numbers. And that made a lot of sense to us. I know a lot of people that do Airbnbs, but I still have a lot of people asking me for advice because my Airbnbs just do that much better.
Now, talking to the older audience, like maybe somebody that already has their financials, they already have a property, but they want to create cash flow. What tips can you give those people?
Yeah, so a good way to accelerate your cash flow is getting into the short-term rental game. But you got to also ask yourself, do I want to do that? So it's not always the best move. It is something that is a little bit less passive. So it depends on the cash flow that you want to create. If I were to advise you, two different ways. If you want to be passive, go big. And what do I mean by that? So I bought my first 20-unit building. I remodeled it. That's a more passive, larger cash flow.
Yes.
Right? Because there at that point, you're doing yearly rentals. You're going to just let everybody pay their monthly rent. And you're cash flowing more because of the volume.
I like that route.
Right. Now, if you want a cash flow acceleration and you don't have enough to buy, a 20-unit building, we're talking about a $3 million building, you can probably do one house and then do the short-term rental model. Because then now at that point, it starts giving you a better profit, but it's not going to be as passive. You can also hire people. You can do management companies. There's a lot of different strategies, but just wrap your mind around the cash flow world. There's a lot of good advice out there to learn it. Don't be afraid to take your first route or take your first move to get in it. But I highly recommend you, do not look back 5 years ago or 5 years from now and say, I wish I would have. I think about it all the time. I wish I would have, out of every 5 wholesale that I had, I wish I would have kept 1. I wish, because I didn't only think about the cash flow, the appreciation, the tax write-off. There's a lot of benefits because I didn't do it. But I was so committed to the right now money that I missed out on the lifestyle that I can have today. Because if I had an extra, that I built within the last 6 years, an extra $15,000, $16,000 a month, guys, what can that do for your life? Think about it. And you knew that $13,000 of your expenses was covered every single month. How would you feel? And so stop waiting for it and at least buy one. Buy one. Do something with it, but buy one.
Start now.
Start now.
So to get a recap on your tips, if you have nothing yet, start with wholesaling, which is basically free. It's just your time, your energy. Maybe buy a program, maybe talk to you about how to do it. You give them some tips.
In a Starbucks.
For $5,000 in a napkin. Then after you do that, you created some cash in that business. If they can hold 1 or 2 throughout their career.
Correct.
Right? Because long term, that's going to pay them out. Then once they start building that cash, then maybe with that cash, they could start maybe doing some investments, buy their own, and then holding, and then basically eventually buy buildings and then create the passive income.
Correct.
But the number one rule, the most important rule that I have learned and that I have learned from you as well and that I have applied is you have to educate yourself.
100%.
You have to invest in yourself, in your mind. Everything starts here. But whatever it is that you do, just do it. Just focus on one thing and do it.
Correct. And it's very important you say that because we're in a box.
Yes.
And that box is what they've taught us. Our friends, our family, our education. There's somebody else in the world right now in another box. And so what you got to figure out, how do I learn out of that box? There's going to be good things and bad things. And then you learn from that box. My dad used to tell me, I wish I would have learned this earlier. He would tell me, dime con quién tú andas y te diré quién eres. For those that don't understand Spanish, it says, tell me who you hang out with and I'll tell you who you are. That's all it is. That's it.
Magic.
That's that easy.
I love it. Now, Mike, you mentioned that you're putting a program together to teach people. Now, if people want to find you, people want to ask more questions, I'm sure, all the value that you brought here today, people are going to be intrigued to talk to you. How can they find you? How can they talk to you?
Yeah, so you can find me. The best place is going to be in my Instagram. It's Mike V Experience. You can DM me there. I'm starting to put YouTube videos now. It's Mike Venereo. Venereo. Don't miss the E. Everybody does it. But yeah. Mike V, right? And so that'll be the easiest place to follow me. Instagram's probably where I'm mostly engaged, giving tips and advice on not only wholesaling, mindset, fitness, family, like building a true packaged life. Because I don't believe that everything in life is business. That's one thing I also learned in my run. I was so committed in success, I kind of missed out a lot of things. And I look back and I'm like, all right, how do I combine these two things?
Yes.
And so I do give a lot of advice on that, but cash flow is what I learned is going to give me my time back. And that's what I'm doing. I'm using capital, resources, connections, other people to give me my time back.
Yes.
Because that's where I think cash flow allows you to live, right? And that's why I fell in love with it, because the transactional can get you rich, but the cash flow gives you wealth, which wealth is time for me.
Yeah, and then the transactional, gets you money, but it doesn't fulfill you. I think the route that you're going is very important, like, teaching people, giving people, because I seen your Instagram is great, by the way, you guys have to watch them. Like, you're giving people tips. It's your time. You're investing your time. There you have it. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Can't stop, won't stop. Let's go.